Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. When you started graduate school, you probably weren't planning to leave academia. Most people I work with weren't either until something shifted. Sometimes it's a clear sign, an event, or a tipping point that makes you scream, "I can't do this anymore." Other times, and this is true for me, it's a slow, relentless wearing down of your energy, your creativity, and your joy until you finally realize that no matter how hard you work, how much you publish, or how much you serve your institution, it will never be enough. Either way, the job you once loved and worked so hard for is now breaking your heart. Today, I want to talk about these moments. The turning points that push smart, passionate academics to finally say, "I can't keep doing this." My goal isn't to make you feel badly about this. No, my aim is to show you that you're not alone. And on the bright side, I want to share what can come next for you. A small word of caution, this episode gets deep and a bit dark. I share more of my story of why I've left than I've shared anywhere else publicly before. It might not be great to listen to if you have kiddos around, but I promise that there's good news and plenty of reason to be hopeful before the end of the episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening. If you've reached your breaking point, what was the moment where you thought, "I can't do this anymore"? Was there a specific day? One more email from that administrator who demands so much but can never find money for raises or rejects your request for sabbatical? Maybe it's that persistent feeling of dread where you wake up every morning and feel the lurch in your stomach when you remember you have to go back to the office soon. For me, it wasn't one event. It was more like a slow wearing down of my joy and my life. I always did everything I was supposed to do, everything that my mentors told me to do. Take the tenure-track job. You can always move later if you don't like the city. It's just a place to start. I was always diligently developing new courses to teach. I was picking up the slack from other members of the department who didn't do their fair share. I was always trying to do my best to advise students and listen to their problems with their classes and with other professors and even with their social life. I tried really hard to find time to write during the semester. I would always block off time on Fridays for that, but it never happened. There were always piles of papers to grade or some new service project that I had to deal with. So that meant that I spent every vacation toting my laptop along and spending days at an uncomfortable desk at my in-laws or in a hotel room doing data analysis and writing up the results while everybody else was out having fun and enjoying the sunshine or going to the beach. And when I look back now, I think, why did I do that? It was absolutely miserable. And I have no idea why I was stuck in that loop of doing all these things that I was quote unquote supposed to do. And at the time, I guess I just kept telling myself, this is normal. This is just how academia is. I just have to do this until I get tenure, or I'll catch up eventually. But for years, it went on. I never caught up. And then came the semester from hell. I used to teach U.S. politics, And the 2016 election was an absolute nightmare. I taught at a small university with very conservative students. Some of them were just awful. They harassed and threatened me and other students in the class. I reported it to my department chair, to the provost, to the dean of students, to everyone that I could get a meeting with. But nobody cared. They just passed the buck to somebody else. It was like this vicious circle of me running around campus from office to office, trying to get someone to care that students in my class said things like, someone should blow up the Clinton rally, and all Democrats should be shot. Looking back now, it was a sign of what was to come on a national scale and what we're dealing with now in the U.S. But at the time, it was something I was totally unprepared for, and I never imagined that I would have to deal with as a college professor. What's more, I never dreamed that that sort of thing could happen inside a college classroom and the administration would blatantly ignore it. I ended up switching schools to a much nicer college in Maryland, but a lot of the problems that are just part of academic life, things like plagiarism and academic dishonesty, being overworked and underpaid, and having to sit through 5-hour faculty meetings when you should be at home having dinner with your kids, didn't go away. I think that's just the nature of the beast. Shortly after our move to Maryland, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer, and my husband and I knew deep down that it was time to move to Maine, where my husband grew up. But we were pregnant with our first child, and I kept telling myself that this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a professor. It's like everything in my brain and my body was telling me to quit, to leave, to run as fast as I could toward my family in Maine, where I was always happy and fulfilled. But those echoes of the voices of my mentors controlled my mind, and I felt like every time I thought about leaving, it was like I kept hitting a brick wall. I knew I didn't want to stay in academia, but there was this obstruction in my path that wouldn't let me get past it. And it wouldn't let me push through to my future, whatever that was going to be. Finally, in June of 2019, my son was about a year old. I had spent that spring semester teaching a brand new course for me. It was a new prep, the U.S. presidency. I remember the day that I stood in front of my students, and one of them asked, "Who's Stormy Daniels and why is she in the news?" I let out a huge sigh. I felt my body just droop. And then I answered the question. But inside my head, I was thinking, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. So I spent that summer stuck in what felt like a constant tornado of anxiety. Everything in my body was screaming, "Get out of here." But I kept bumping up against that wall. And my husband and I had, I don't know how many conversations debating our options, making pro and con lists, trying to play out each possible scenario to map out our future. I thought that if I just thought hard enough about what my future would look like if I left academia, then it would suddenly become clear. Like, as if I were a fortune teller and the clouds would suddenly lift and I would see myself in this new life doing whatever. I had no idea what it was going to be. But of course, it's not possible to see the future. We don't know how anything is going to turn out. When I finished my PhD and landed a tenure-track job, I thought I knew what the future held. A comfortable job with a path to an easy life and financial security. I certainly did not have on my bingo card, Donald Trump gets elected president twice and the country and higher ed go to hell in a handbasket. And this is exactly my point, right? Even if you stay in academia, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the future holds. You assume that staying is the safe option, that you'll keep your reliable paycheck, that you'll get tenure and or promotion to full, that everything will just keep chugging along. But we don't know for certain that any of that is true. Just like you don't know if you leave, what's going to happen. In the summer of 2019, when I finally decided to leave, I knew that I was jumping into this massive black hole of uncertainty. I didn't know what I was going to do for work. I just knew that I was absolutely miserable and I had to leave. So I did. I took the leap. I called my department chair. I told her what was going on, that I couldn't teach in the fall. I was shaking as I held the phone to my ear. Later that day, I got a call from our provost. She was very kind, very supportive, very understanding. She offered to give me a year off, unpaid, to rest and recover in the hopes that that would be enough to have me come back the following year. And it was that exact moment when I knew with 100% certainty that I had to leave academia. I listened to the provost's offer and I thought, what if I took her up on this? How would that play out? And in just those few seconds there on the phone, I played out the scenario in my head. We leave Maryland, we live in Maine for a year, and then we have to pack up and move back to Maryland. My heart sunk. I didn't want to live there in Maryland anymore. I didn't want to be a professor anymore. And I knew in that moment on that phone call that no matter how much time I took off to recover from the burnout, the same problems would be waiting for me when I went back to teach. The only solution was to leave for good. But that clarity that I had in that moment felt amazing. After years of hemming and hawing and going back and forth and considering all the what ifs, I finally knew that leaving was the right choice for me. I finally broke through that brick wall. And I knew in that moment, when I voiced that aloud to the provost, that leaving for a year and then coming back wasn't going to solve anything. All the problems would still be there. I knew from the tips of my toes to the depths of my soul that this was the answer. I had to leave. And so I did. Now, I will admit that I'm fortunate. I have a husband. He had a standing job offer waiting for him here in Maine. We had some savings, not a lot, but that and my husband's salary plus the health insurance benefits we were going to get from his job would tide us over until I found something else to do for work. So we sold our house in Maryland and we moved to Maine. The overflowing sense of relief I felt as soon as we stepped foot in Maine is indescribable. It was like a completely clean slate and a fresh start. I had zero regrets, and I was so excited for what the future would bring. I had no idea what that was at the time, but I was ready for it. Now, fast forward about 6 months to the fall of 2019, late 2019, I had applied to so many non-academic jobs. I had had several interviews and a couple of offers from local places, but nothing felt right. It just wasn't the right fit for me. At the same time, I was putting the finishing touches on a book I had co-authored with my longtime mentor in academia. The freelance copy editor from our publisher contacted us to look over her changes on the manuscript. I was emailing regularly with my mentor and co-author and was keeping him in the loop about my job search. And I just came across this email from him the other day, which was kind of funny to find after all these years. But one day he wrote to me and he said, you know, if you're not finding a job there, you might consider reaching out to Routledge, to our publisher, and asking them if they'd hire you as a copy editor. You'd be great at it. And that's the moment where the light bulb went off for me. I thought this is what I could do for a little while until I found a quote unquote real job. Because when I started out, I totally thought this was going to be temporary. And I thought it would be a bridge to some kind of more normal or stable job with a salary and benefits and all of that. Because at the time, I thought that's what I needed. I needed that stability and that safety. But before we worked with that freelance copy editor who worked on our book, I had no idea that academic editors existed. I always wrote all my papers myself or with co-authors, and it never occurred to me that there are people out there who help you write and publish your work. I had no idea. But when I have a problem or a puzzle to solve, I am relentless. And as soon as I knew that becoming a copy editor was an option, as soon as I knew that it was an avenue I could pursue, even temporarily, I set to work figuring out how to get a job. I started with Google searches. I emailed our desk editor at Routledge, and she connected me with the contractors or the packagers that they use for copy editing. And I spruced up my LinkedIn profile. I created a very basic website. I didn't even buy the domain name yet. I wrote a one-page resume, and I emailed everyone I could possibly think of who worked in academic publishing and at editing agencies to ask if they would hire me. I just searched the internet for every kind of academic press that I thought might take on a freelancer, and I wrote them. And it worked. I got hired on by a few editing agencies. They were great places to train and to learn professional academic editing. Most of the skills that I use as an academic copy editor came from the fact that I had experience in academic publishing and that I was a strong writer and editor. But it did help to have practice working for these agencies where they send you papers to edit. Many of them are not even in your field. I edited a lot of chemistry papers that I really didn't understand, but I did the best I could. And, I learned. And after a few years, which included raising my toddler and having a second child, I finally got up the courage to try to attract private clients. I was on the academic editors Facebook groups, and I saw other people talking about how they only worked with private clients. And I always told myself, I could never convince somebody to pay me money to do this if they're not like, an agency or a company. I still had that imposter syndrome and that self-doubt. And finally, I said to myself after a few years, I have to go for this because this is the only way that I'm going to make really great money. I think with the agencies, I was making about $45,000 a year. And the second year, I took 3 months off to have my daughter. So it wasn't terrible by any means. It was great considering I was working 20 to 25 hours a week. But I wanted more. I wanted to make this a real career. And so in late 2022, I started adding my name to the dissertation lists. The formatting offices in the United States sometimes will keep lists of editors, so I put myself on a bunch of those. And I started marketing myself. I bought my domain name for my website finally. I learned marketing by listening to podcasts and reading books and all kinds of stuff. And I just started putting myself out there. And people started hiring me. Grad students hired me to edit their dissertations. Faculty hired me to edit their articles and their books. And one thing led to another, and my client base grew. And in 2024, I hit a major milestone that I am really proud of. I never imagined that I would earn six figures, over $100,000 in academia until maybe I was a full professor and nearing the end of my career. But I earned it in 2024. I hit $100,000, and it was huge for me. It was, as somebody who grew up with not a lot of money, that's a big milestone. And I did it myself. I didn't have help. Nobody taught me any of this. Nobody helped me, aside from my academic training and working with my mentor, my co-author, who I learned a lot about writing and publishing from. Nobody taught me how to be a professional editor. And it took a lot of trial and error, but I got there. I just turned 40, and like I said, I'm earning more money than I ever expected to do as an academic until much later in my career. And the best part is I work under 30 hours a week. I stop work every day around 1 o'clock to have some lunch and to go pick up my kids from school. I set my own hours. If I want to take the day off, I do it. I take most of the summer off to spend time with my kids. and I'm my own boss. I don't have to ask permission to take time off. If I don't want to work with a particular client, I don't work with them. I get to make the rules and I get to be in charge, and that's really freeing, I have to say. It's a dream come true. So that's my journey. If you go back to the first few episodes of this podcast, you can hear me talk about how editing companies and publishers hire freelancers, what kinds of work academic editors and coaches do, everything that's involved in starting out in this business. But now that I've described in this episode the shift from academia that I made from academia into editing, I want to share a bit more with you about the bright side of my journey and what's possible for you if you decide this path is the right fit. So first of all, let me say that as much as I support and cheer on anyone who decides to leave academia, I know that it's scary, especially if you don't have a partner to help support you, or maybe you're a single parent, or you have health issues and you have to keep your health insurance. I know that not everyone can just light their academic job on fire and leave. I get it. But that is the beautiful thing about freelancing. You don't have to leave right now. You don't have to decide right now. You can dip your toe in the water and take it slowly and see how you like it. Whether you apply as a freelancer to editing agencies or academic presses, or whether you go straight to starting to bring in your own clients on your own, you can work as much or as little as you want. You can dip your toes in and see if you like it. You can slowly, over a year or two or more, get practice doing this on the side or in the summers. You build up your base of reliable clients. And then if you decide you want to, you can quit academia when it feels safe to you, when you know you have the income to support yourself. So what can this work look like for you? Well, I start my conversation with all of my clients by having them answer two questions. First, whom do you want to help? Is it grad students? Is it early career faculty? Is it people who write books, whether academic or nonfiction? Is it people who are on the job market? Is it minoritized or first-gen scholars, or maybe people who are neurodivergent? Who is it that you want to spend your days helping? What brings you joy? The beautiful thing about starting a business is that you get to build it from the ground up. You have a completely clean slate, a blank canvas to work from. If you're going to eventually leave academia, why pigeonhole yourself into doing something else that you don't enjoy? If you don't want to go into industry, if you don't want to go into corporate, if you don't want to work for a nonprofit or whatever, don't do it. Why go from one job that you hate to another that doesn't make you happy? Let's build this business together to be your dream career and the thing that excites you and that you wake up every morning eager to work on. So who are those people that you feel excited to serve? Second, what problem can you help them solve? What is a challenge that people struggle with that you've already figured out, that you've already found the answer to? This can be something academic in nature. You could go into editing, or you could develop some kind of coaching practice. With coaching, this is where the options really open up. You can coach on writing and publishing, time management, qualitative or quantitative research or data analysis. You can help people write their job market letters or practice interviewing for jobs or giving conference presentations, public speaking. Maybe you're really good at social media, at Instagram or TikTok, something that us old millennials and older probably aren't very good at. Maybe you are good at it and you want to teach professors how to use these tools to promote their research or their book or whatever. You can do anything you want, right? As long as you can solve a problem and help people. Maybe the thing you want to help people with has nothing to do with academia. Maybe you're really good at teaching people how to play guitar or paint or sculpt clay. Or maybe you're a mom who's nailed the formula for keeping your family organized without constantly being stressed out. By the way, if that is you, please email me because I'll be your first client. Or maybe you can help K through 12 students learn math or science or writing. Or maybe you can teach them how to use AI ethically. There are infinite possibilities here. As long as people struggle with this problem and you have a solution that you can teach them, you can start an online business centered on this thing that you love. And what I want you to really pay attention to here is that you already are a teacher. You know how to teach people things. Starting an editing or coaching business, or even developing an online course that you sell, is just like developing a course and curriculum, which you've probably done 100 times in your career. You have these skills. You know how to do this. The only thing you need to learn is how to talk about your new business and share it with the people you want to help. Okay, let's pause here for a second. Did you see what I did there? I said the only thing you have to learn is how to talk about your new business and share it with the people you want to help. This, my friends, is my sneaky way of talking about marketing and selling. But stay with me. I promise it's not a bait and switch. I'm not trying to trick you here. This will all make sense in just a minute. When I teach academics how to launch an editing or coaching business, and there are now over 60 people who've gone through my program becoming an academic editor, the number one thing that terrifies the heck out of them is marketing and selling. But Paulina, you mean we actually have to sell things? Yes, that is the purpose of a business. But marketing and sales are not as scary or as sleazy as you've probably always thought. Believe me, I thought that too. I hated the idea of entrepreneurship. I assumed that most business owners are greedy and just out to make a buck and they're unethical and they lie. I had terrible ideas about entrepreneurship and capitalism until I became an entrepreneur. But I freely admit now that I was wrong. Especially now that the online business world has exploded. Entrepreneurship has become available to anyone with an internet connection. And this has started to level the playing field for so many people who would never have been able to start a business or who would have been too terrified to start a business like I was. For example, look at women. There are so many wonderful, brilliant, creative women business owners in the online space. They are kind, they are generous, and believe it or not, many of them are left-wingers who use their platforms to speak out against greed and to speak in favor of things like diversity and equity. And they are nothing like the stereotype of an entrepreneur that you've probably always had in your mind, and that I know I did. And these entrepreneurs, they embrace a model of business that is designed to share knowledge. Yes, we charge money for our courses and our coaching because it's our intellectual property that we've worked really hard to develop and perfect and share with the world. And it's our time and our labor. And I'm not going to apologize for this, but anyone spending time and labor to develop a course or a product deserves to be paid for that, right? Often the knowledge that we, or you, if you decide to go this route, share is the culmination of decades of learning and experience. And when we pour that into a course or a coaching program and we spend our time and energy helping other people solve these problems, like I talked about earlier, we deserve to be paid for that, right? But businesses like this are not profit-driven. We are mission-driven. Our goal is to share this knowledge to help the people who need it. We are teaching and we are serving and we are mentoring the people who struggle with the problem that we've figured out how to solve. And so when you quote unquote market yourself, you're not trying to convince people to buy something they don't need. We're not advertising here. You are sharing what you do with the world so that the people who do need your solution are able to find you so that they know you exist. If they feel like you're the right fit and they hear your message, like they feel like you're the right person to help them navigate this challenge, then they hire you. There's no pressure tactics. There's no bro marketing or false claims. It's just you sharing yourself and your offer with the world in an authentic way and attracting the people who are naturally drawn to you. And that, my friends, is what marketing comes down to. You have this group of people that you enjoy working with, that you want to serve and help. You have a problem that they have, that you found a solution to. You have a system or a framework to solve that problem, and you want to share it with them. And yes, they're going to pay you. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You have invested years probably into developing this solution that you're sharing. You deserve to be paid for that effort and for that time you're spending now. And so marketing is just letting people know you exist, putting yourself in front of them. There's so much out there on the internet. It's a deluge of information, right? Anybody can Google their problem and find answers. But to be able to connect with someone like you who understands them, who's been there, somebody that can offer empathy and support and a non-judgmental space to work with them, somebody that they value their time with, they value spending time with you, they understand and look forward to their time with you, that's priceless, right? I mean, think about like a therapist or some other coach or a mentor that you've learned from. That can be incredibly helpful to somebody and can change their life. And so there's nothing wrong with offering these services, letting people know that you exist, and letting them pay you for your time and effort and knowledge. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground today. I know there's not really a lot of concrete advice here, but I've been feeling drawn lately to use this podcast not just as a place to share the stories of other academics who've become entrepreneurs. I think that that's really helpful for you. From what I've heard from people, they really enjoy seeing what's possible by listening to the stories of others who've done it. But I also have wanted to share what's on my mind. And probably because of everything going on in the world now and how difficult a place I know academia is to be in, I've been thinking a lot about my own journey out and what it takes for someone like you to break through that brick wall that so often stands in our way. So I hope this is helpful. I hope hearing my story makes you realize that you're not alone. And truly, I hear from dozens of people every week who have gone through similar things and who are desperate to find a way out. So you are not alone. But I hope that this also helps you figure out your own way to break through whatever is holding you back. Whether you resign your academic job today and dive into your next adventure, or you decide to dip your toes into something new and just slowly start crafting your plan B. There's no right or wrong answer here. I just hope that you make a promise to yourself to not stay miserable. Don't keep putting up with the BS. Don't keep telling yourself that it will get better. Think about your life and what you want your days to look like from here on out. And then whatever that answer is, go after it. Break through the wall and go after your dreams because you deserve to thrive. See you next week.
If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become an editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.